Hi there. Today you will build and deploy a fully responsive, modern UI/UX website with Next.13. If you've ever struggled with creating a sleek UI that also performs flawlessly, you're not alone. Your stunning travel app will include an appealing hero section, a camp section featuring various camps to explore, an engaging travel guide section, a complex feature section, a call to action for mobile apps, and a generous footer section with many links. So, is this just a simple landing page? Not at all. While developing the app, you'll improve your code architecture and make your components reusable. Utilize Tailwind CSS. Start with the mobile-first approach for maximum responsiveness. Make use of TypeScript and many more best practices that set you apart in the industry. The only thing you'll need to follow along, the basics of React. So keep watching because we'll start simple and go through each of these skills step by step with in-depth explanations. So you'll not only learn the fundamentals, but be able to create your own amazing Next.js, Tailwind, and TypeScript-powered applications. And don't overlook the fact that by the end of this video, you'll have an impressive project ready to be featured in your portfolio and impress your friends, clients, and even potential employers. So without any further ado, before we start building out our project, let's first get the hosting and the domain name we'll use to deploy the app. I highly recommend Hostinger, and right now they're offering a crazy deal, so I simply needed to show this to you. Click the special link with an extra discount in the description. And my choice here is the business plan. For a few bucks a month, you can host 100 websites with up to 5 times increased performance and get free SSL, which means you'll have HTTPS security. You'll also get a free custom email address, and most importantly, a free domain name and a free CDN, which will optimize your website speed even more. This deal is valid for a limited time only, and we need the application you'll build in this video to be fast, reliable, and trustworthy. All of the features you'll get with this hosting plan will make all the difference. Since I've partnered with Hostinger, they decided to give you an even bigger discount. You can find the link and a unique discount code in the description down below. Enjoy! And once you visit the link in the description, click Claim Deal and then Add to Cart. Here, we can choose the period of our hosting, and with the crazy discount going on right now, I'll definitely choose 48 months. Then, you can choose your payment method and enter a special JavaScript Mastery coupon code. This will give you an even bigger discount. Immediately after, we can start with Hostinger's guided setup. You can choose who you're creating this website for. In this case, you're creating it for yourself and your future growth as a developer. And what even is this question? Of course, you're building it yourself. You can choose the type of the website you want to build. In most cases, it's going to be business or portfolio. And do you need help building your website? No thanks. I have JSM to guide me. We want to create a website from complete scratch. So click Skip, create an empty website. And here, you can claim your free domain name. Our website will be about camping, so let's do something like Camp Traveler. And I'm gonna choose the .com domain ending. Let's see if it's available. And thankfully it is. Of course, you won't be able to get the same exact one, but try to think of something different. Or you can skip this step entirely and then get the domain name at the end of the video. For now, I'm gonna click Continue. And while our website is getting set up, I would highly encourage you to join our JavaScript Mastery Discord server. Tens of thousands of developers are joining and chatting every single day. On top of that, you can ask for help in many different technologies and even get help if you get stuck with any of our videos. With that said, we are now ready, so let's go to our control panel. And there we go. Our hosting and the domain name have been set up. So the last thing we have to do is to actually code out our amazing website. With that said, let's dive straight into the code. To get started with the development of our great application, you can create a new empty folder on your desktop called Travel App, and then simply drag and drop it into your Visual Studio Code. Once you're in, you can go full screen, and then on top left, go to View, and then Terminal. This is going to open up Visual Studio Code's integrated terminal. And here, we can initialize our app. And to initialize it, we're going to use Next.js. I believe the most powerful framework of the future. It's used by some of the world's largest companies, and it enables you to create full-stack web applications by extending latest React features and integrating powerful Rust-based JavaScript tooling for the fastest builds. And don't worry if you don't have any experience with Next.js so far, you can click Learn Next right here, which is going to lead you to their documentation. Or you can go to jsmastery.pro and check out our ultimate Next.js 13.5 course. As it is quite new, it's going to allow you to become a top 1% of Next.js 13 developers. But if you already have some knowledge with Next.js, or you would like to just dip your toes in with this video, you can do that without any prerequisites, just the basics of React. So let's go ahead and click Get Started, and we can immediately move to installation. In JavaScript Mastery videos, and especially courses, I don't want you to mindlessly copy and paste any commands that I give you. Instead, I want to point you to the right documentation pages, because that's what's going to make you the best developer there is. Being able to understand the docs and become independent. So let's go ahead and copy this command right here, npx create next app latest. Go back to our terminal, paste it, and press / to create it in the current repository. Now, this is going to ask you whether you want to install the Create Next App 13.5 in this case, to which you're going to say, why? Yes. And then it's going to open up a questionnaire to set up our application. In this case, we will use TypeScript, but once again, don't be scared if you haven't used it before. We're going to go light on TypeScript this time, just to allow you to dip your toes if you haven't used it before. So let's press yes. Just to keep things simple and not to have many build errors, for now we're going to say no to ESLint. Tailwind CSS we definitely will use, and not only will you use it, but you're going to create the entire UI UX of this application using Tailwind. So let's press yes. We don't need the source directory. We will need the app router, and we don't need to customize the default import alias. Once you press the final enter, Next.js will install all the necessary dependencies needed for us to run the application. And there we go, success. So now you can clear your terminal by running clear and then run npm run dev. This is going to spin up our application on localhost 3000. And then simply hold Control or Command and click this link. It's going to open it up right within your browser, and you'll have a modern looking starter interface immediately. Vercel provides us with a nice starting point in case you want to read the docs, learn, or explore some Next.js templates. Now that we are running our application, let's dive a bit deeper into the file and folder structure that was created for us once we initialized our Next.js 13 application. Let's start with the folder that matters the most, the folder that includes our entire application, the app folder. Within it, we have our favicon that displays in your browser's tab. We have the globals.css, the layout, and then the page where we can see our homepage. So for now, if we delete this entire main within the home and simply render an h1 that's going to say hello world, and that's going to have a class name equal to text-bold, text-teal 500. And if we save it, if you go back, you should be able to see something that looks like this. A lot of weird lines going around our screen, but then on top, we indeed do have a teal hello world. This means that Tailwind is working, but still some basic default styles from the Next.js starter are being applied, and we want to fix them together. So immediately, you can head to the globals.css, remove everything from here, and then in the description down below, you can find a GitHub gist file that contains the modified globals.css. Simply copy it and paste it right here. You're going to notice that here we don't have any special styles, rather some of the helper functions that we can use within our application. For example, if we want to make the text regular or bold, we are immediately applying a couple of classes here. We have also different flex utilities and just things that are going to make our development easier. In no way am I providing any kind of logic here or anything that you might need while developing it. Everything that's important, we're gonna do together. I promise. So this is just some starter to make our life easier. Now that we have the globals, we also have to have the second style that's going to support our globals.css, which is a modified tailwind.config. In that same GitHub gist, just below the globals.css, you can find the modified tailwind.config.ts. So simply paste it right here. Here we include some background images and some default colors that we're going to use within our application. So every time you want to use this variant of green, you don't have to spell it out, but rather you say color green 50. As simple as that. And this concept is called theming within Tailwind. In case you want to master Tailwind before focusing on this video, I would highly recommend to watch our Tailwind CSS full course. It's going to allow you to understand the basics, the theming, more advanced stuff, as well as build and deploy a Nike website. So if you don't have a lot of experience with Tailwind, you can watch this video first. It's going to be a card for it will appear on the screen right now. And then you can come back and watch this video later and then build a second app, which we're going to build in this video. Now that we have our modified Tailwind and globals, we no longer need to import this image tag and we can start just from scratch where we have hello world. So let's put our editors side by our browser so that we can see the changes that we make live. There we go, and we can see our hello world. Let's also provide it a text-2XL, which is just going to make it a bit bigger. And also, it's not text-bold, it's font-bold. So there we go. You can see even I can make some mistakes. But I'm actually glad this happened because if I were to hover over the text bold, nothing would appear. But with the font bold, you can see exactly which CSS class is being applied. And to be able to see that, you need to install Tailwind CSS IntelliSense extension within your Visual Studio Code. Once you install it, it's going to tell you exactly which CSS properties which class is applying. So if you're new to Tailwind, it's going to be quite useful. But with that said, we are ready to start creating the base file and folder structure of our application. So what exactly is the start? Well, we of course have to start with our navigation bar, and also we can start with our footer that we have on the bottom. So to be able to implement these two, we're not going to put them right here within the page, because what happens in the home page stays on the home page. But what we have in our layout gets spread across all the other pages as well. So in cases like Navbar or footer, you definitely want to place them right here within the layout file. So let's focus on the layout. It allows us to do other things as well. Instead of saying create next app, it allows us to modify the metadata of our application. So here we can say something like travel, and immediately that's going to be reflected in the title of our application. You can also add a description. We can say something like travel UI UX app for camping. There we go. In this case, we won't be using the inter font, so we can remove that. We will need to import the globals.css, and we will need the metadata type from Next. After that, we can focus on our body. So we no longer have to give it a class name of inter.className. And when it comes to our children, we want to show the navbar on top of the main and then the footer below it. So let's go ahead and create two new components. Before we do that, we can create a new components folder right next to the app folder. So that's going to be components. And within it, we can create a new navbar.tsx. Again, don't be scared because it's TSX. It's TypeScript, but still it's really similar to JSX. And there you can run RAFCE. This is going to create a React arrow function export component. Just a simple way to create the base structure we need for this to work. And if this didn't work for you, you can install the ES7 Plus React Redux React Native Snippets. It's another cool extension. So just install it and then try RAFCE, and it's going to create the structure for you. Now we can replicate that to create our footer as well. So let's create a footer.tsx, run RAFCE, and we have the footer too. Now, why cannot we see it on the screen? Well, that's because we're not using it anywhere. So let's go back to our layout, and right here above the children, let's render the navbar. You can just start typing it, And Next.js is automatically going to recognize it, and you can import it just by clicking on this thing right here. As you can see, it just imported it immediately. And then you have to close it properly. And we can do the same thing with the footer. Another way in which you can do it is you can double click the word or the component and then press Ctrl or Command space. It's going to allow you to again simply import it by pressing enter. And now, if you save it, you can automatically see Navbar and footer appear on top and below our hello world. Let's also, to be a bit more semantic, wrap our children within a main tag. That way we're going to know that this is our main component or the main part of the page. And let's give it a class name equal to relative and overflow dash hidden. So this is going to remove any weird scrolls that we have. And with that, we can dive into the navbar, as that's the first part we need to develop. So simply press Ctrl or Command and then click into that component. In Next.js, we no longer have to import React from React, so we can simply remove that. And we can start with creating our structure. We always want to use semantic HTML. It improves SEO and accessibility. So instead of simply creating a div, let's create an HTML5 semantic nav tag. Our nav is going to have a class name equal to, let's add a border of 2 and border dash red dash 500. This is just to be able to visually see what we're doing. And as you can see right now, it appears on top. But let's add a few more styles. Let's give it a flex between, a max dash container, a padding dash container, as well as relative, and a z index of 30 to appear on top, and a padding y of 5. Once you do this, you're going to notice that we are starting to create the basic structure for what's yet to become our navigation bar. Within it, we can create our first link, a link pointing to home. So what we can do is simply create a link component. And again, we have to import this from next link. So simply double click it, press Ctrl or Command space, and then press enter, which is going to automatically import it from next link. If the automatic import didn't work, simply manually type import link from next link. Every link needs to have an href, meaning where is it pointing. And in this case, it's going to point to just /, meaning the home page. Within it, we don't simply want to say home, right? That's not cool. What we want to do is show the logo of our application, hi link. And now, what would be the easiest way for me to give you the assets, right? There's going to be a lot of these assets and images that combine and create this application. So for you to be able to get them, I'm going to give you a zipped public folder within the description of this video. So simply download that folder, unzip it, and then paste it right here in the root of our application. But before, delete the existing public folder, and then simply paste it right here. The new public folder is going to have a lot of different icons and images and assets that we're going to use to make this application come to life. So now, instead of home, we can rather render an image. But it's not going to be a basic image tag. It's going to be an image coming from next image. So once again, you have to import it from next. And what this next image does is it significantly optimizes your image for faster load times. Not anymore are your images going to take a ton of time to load. Now it's going to be instantaneous. The only thing you have to provide to that image is going to be a source of /hi link, which is the name of our application, -logo.svg. We can also give it an alt tag of logo, a width of about 74, and a height of 29. Now, if we save this, and of course fix our width, and go back to our application, you can see that it seems like it broke. But that's only because I misspelled it. So it's supposed to be hilink, like this. So now if you fix it and say logo right here, you should be able to see it appear. There we go. And I believe we can remove this border 2 and border red 500 because now we understand what the navbar is. It's this entire rectangle at the top. Also, notice how the deployed website has this cool little icon on top. That's called a favicon. And since we imported our public folder, you also have access to it. So how do you set it up? Well, delete this favicon right here, And then within the public folder, you can notice you have another favicon here. So simply drag it to your app. And immediately the change is going to be reflected. Now, just so I know which one is deployed and which one is not, I'm going to pin our current application. This is a little cool trick on Chrome. You can pin it and it's always going to remain there. Now, below this image, I'm going to create a UL, so-called an unordered list. And we can give it a class name equal to, usually it's going to be hidden. Its height is going to be full, a gap of 12. So we create some spacing between the elements. And then on large devices, it's going to be flex, meaning it's going to be visible on large devices. Let me show you what I mean. On the deployed application, you cannot see the links here, but as you expand it to large screen, you can see all of these amazing links appear. So that's exactly what we have done with this UL by giving it a hidden property and then flex on large devices. Responsiveness is so easy with Tailwind. Now here, we have a lot of these links that we want to loop over. And what you could do is technically create an array right here and then say something like, you could copy all of these. So you can take them and paste them right here. And then you could map over them. But we never want to mix some data, which is this right here, with our presentation, which is the UI that we have here. So what I would do instead is create something known as a constants folder. So let's go to our files and folders, collapse everything, and create a new folder called constants. And then within it, a new index.ts. In the GitHub gist that you visited before, you can find the complete constants.ts file. Simply copy it and paste it here. Once again, trust me, this is nothing useful. This is just some data we're mapping over. So let me show you what we're going to use right now. We're going to use these nav links. This is simply an array of links that contain the href, the key, and then the label. And instead of having all of these links appear immediately here within our application, we can rather put them in a new file and then reference them. So here we can take these nav links, go back to our application, use curly braces, and then within we can say nav links. We can import them from @/constants at the top, and then we can say .map, where we get each individual link. And for each one, we can immediately return something. So keep in mind, here is not a curly brace. Rather, it's just a parenthesis, which means that we have an immediate return. So what are we returning for each one of these links? Well, it's going to be a link component that's going to have an href equal to link.href. It's going to have a key equal to link.key. And it's going to say something like link.label. So now if we save this and go back to our current website, you can see that we have an error, but once we reload, it's gone, or at least it appears to be that way. Still, it's complaining a bit. But don't worry, we're gonna fix this together. For now, we can continue creating the structure, and then later we can revisit this error and I can explain what it is about. And if it appeared for you, simply close it for now right here. So now we're mapping over our links, but we also want to give them some styling. So what we can do is give it a class name. And that class name is going to be equal to regular-16. So this is for the font size. Text-gray-50. Flex center. Cursor-pointer to indicate that it is clickable. Padding bottom of 1.5 to create some space. Transition-all, and then on hover, font-bold. So now you can see that these look a bit different, and once you hover, it actually looks great. Now, one mistake I've done is that I've put this UL within this link, but rather only the image is supposed to be within the link, and the UL is supposed to go right next to it. So I can select all of these lines and just indent it properly right here and save it. And now this looks more like it. The error is gone and we can see all the links on the right side. What is missing though is this button that you can see right here to log in. So we're going to add that right here below the UL by creating a new div. And that div is going to have a class name off, or in large devices, flex center, and usually it's going to be hidden. Same for the UL. So in mobile devices, we don't want to see it. And within it, we want to render a button. Of course, this can be a simple HTML button component that's going to say, click me, or something like that. It's going to work, right? But this button is going to be reused a couple of times on our website. We have this button on top. Then we again have it on home, where it says download. Then if we scroll all the way down here, we have 2 more buttons, download app. So we're using it about 4 times. Whenever you're using something more than 2 or 3 times, it makes sense to create it into a reusable component. Especially as your app grows, it's great to reuse your components because then you can modify them whenever you use them and you can create more within less code. So instead of creating a button like this, we want to create a new button component. So within components, create a new file called button.tsx. Within it, run RAFCE, then go back to the navbar, and right here within this div, call a button component coming from /button, and it's going to be a self-closing tag. Now, you can see, if we go to our app, that it says button, but if we go to our button, we can now start styling it. So let's first turn it into an actual button, like this. Then let's give it a type equal to button, and let's make it say something like log in. Now, this is good for our homepage, right? We want it to say login. But what do we want to do here when it says download app? How do we make it say something different? Well, we can do that by using props. So to this button, depending on where we're calling it, we can pass props so it knows how it should behave. We can pass it a type, in this case button. We can pass it a title, what is it going to say? We can pass it an icon, for example, user.svg, and we can pass it a variant, which is going to be btn dark green. Now we can go into that button and we can accept all of those props right here at the top by getting type, title, icon, variant. And these are going to be of a type button props. So since we're using TypeScript, this button needs to know exactly what props will it get. So right here, we can say type button props is equal to, it's going to have a type, which can be either button or submit. It's going to have a title of a type string. It's going to have an icon of a type string, but some buttons will not have an icon, such as this one. So this can be turned into optional property by adding this little question mark. And we're going to give it a variant, which for now we know is btn underscore dark underscore green. So now TypeScript is no longer complaining as this button knows exactly what is it getting. So now if we go back, we can give it a type equal to type. So no longer is this predefined, now it actually changes. Then within this button, we can render an icon by saying if an icon exists, so icon and end, then we can render an image. This image we have to import from next image. We can give it a source equal to icon, alt equal to title, width of 24, and height of 24 as well. So if we save this, you can see that it seems like it broke, but that's because we didn't yet render any text. So we need to render a label component that's going to render the title. And once we do that, the login is back. Let's give it a class name equal to bold-16, white space, no wrap. But now why cannot we see the icon if we're passing it right here? Well, that's because the button should be dark. So what we can do is we can apply some class names. And in this case, the class names are going to be a dynamic template string. It's going to have a flex center. It's going to have a gap 3, a rounded dash full, so it appears like circular button. It's going to have a border, and we can save this. Also, it needs to have this variant. You see this variant we're passing in? We can render this right here as variant. This should be btn dark green. And once you add that variant, the button will become dark. That's because if we go to our globals.css, right here, we're applying this btn dark green, as well as any other color that we have for our buttons. You can define them right here, apply a couple of properties that resonate with that button, and then just refer them by a simple class name, which is exactly what we're doing right here by passing the variant btn dark green. So with that said, we have our login, but now if we go to a smaller view, everything disappears, and we want to show this so-called hamburger menu. So let's go right here, below this div, that's important, and there we can render a self-closing image tag that's going to have a source equal to /menu.svg. Alt tag is going to be set to menu, width is going to be 32, height is going to be 32, and class name is going to be inline-block, cursor-pointer, and then on large devices is going to be hidden. So it's exactly the opposite from the other ones. Here, we do want to show it, but then as we grow larger, we want to remove it because everything fits in one screen. In this case, since we're doing just the UI, I won't be implementing the logic for this, but I invite you to give it a shot and try to make this open up a nice menu on the right side of the screen where you have all the links that we have right here on larger devices as well. But with that said, our navigation bar is now done and we can close it. I often use the Control W or Command W to close a tab. So I'm going to use that to close the button and the navbar. And now we don't have to focus on the footer yet, as it's going to go all the way down. But what we can focus on is the homepage, the most important part of our application. So let's lay out our entire homepage. We can do that by removing this H1 and wrapping everything in a React fragment. This is used to group elements, but when you don't need to give it some additional classes, as to a div. And then here, we want to render all of the different sections of the page separately. And that's going to become really useful if you want to keep your code organized and not have too many lines for each file. So what we can do is notice which different sections do we have. What you're seeing right now is the hero section, the first thing on the screen. Then we have the camp section. We also have the guide section. We have the features section. And finally, we have the get app. And after that, we have the footer. So let's create all of these as separate components so we can reference them within here. Within our components, you can create a new file called hero.tsx, run rafce one more time. You can repeat that process for the camp as well, camp.tsx, and run rafce. We can move further and then create a guide.tsx, run rafce. You can also create a features.tsx and run rafce. And finally, a get app section.tsx, rafce. And now we have all of these different sections we might need, and you can close all of these currently open files and simply refer to them one by one. Hero, a self-closing section. Then we have the camp, also self-closing. We have the guide. We have the features. And finally, we have the get app. And you can simply import all of them by double-clicking, pressing Ctrl or Command space, and then clicking right here. So let's repeat this procedure 5 more times. And you can see that all of the imports appear on top and our homepage is done. So now if we go back and save the file, you can see that we have hero, camp, guide, features, get app, footer, and this is it. So these 6 pieces of text will soon become the entire application that you can see right here on the screen. So what we can do is get started with the first one by control clicking into it and developing our hero section. To get started with our hero section, we can wrap it in just that, a section. This section is going to have a class name. Let's do border of 2 and border of red 500, just so we can see the section. And then we can start giving it other classes as well, such as a max-container. This is going to give it a full width. A padding-container. This is also going to give it some paddings. We can give it a flex flex-col, so the elements appear in a column. We can give it a gap of 20 to provide some spacing between the elements, padding Y of 10, padding bottom of 32, on medium devices, gap of 28, and on large devices, padding Y of 20. Finally, on extra large, we want to show everything in a row, so we can say flex row. And you can see how this section looks like right now because of these borders. Within it, we want to show a new div. And this is going to be a self-closing div with a class name equal to hero-map. If you save this, you won't be able to see anything on this screen size. But as you expand it, you can start seeing that right here, we have some kind of a map appearing right here. And we're using this as the background. So if you look into the hero map, if you search for it, you can see that within the globals file, we're applying the absolute positioning on right and top, and then we render this BG pattern too, which is coming from our background images. So this is just the map pattern that we display right here. And you can see how it looks like on the finished website. But now we want to go on a smaller screen, and as you can see, it should show a bit on bottom. But then we should focus on the main content that we can see on the left side when in full screen. So that's going to be below this hero map, and we can say this is going to be the left side. Here we can have a div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to relative z20 flex, flex-1, flex-col, and on extra large devices, a width of 1/2, meaning 50%. Within it, we can render this great camp image by saying image. We can import it from next/image, just right here. We no longer need to import React. And then we can give it a source equal to /camp.svg. Alt is going to be camp. Width is going to be about 50. And height is going to be 50 as well. And then if you save it, you should be able to see a camp appear right there. It's just a small icon that's going to appear above the P right here. And we have to ensure this is in the right place. So as we move this, you can notice it has to move as well. It has to always appear on top of this P tag. So to achieve that, we can give it a class name equal to absolute left-5px within square brackets like so. That's going to move it a bit to the right. Then we can give it a top of -30 pixels. So if we do that, that's going to bring it a bit more to the top. We have a W of 10 for width. And then on large devices, a W of, in square brackets, 50 pixels. So it's going to make it larger. Now that we have this image, below it, we can render an h1 tag. Keep in mind, every single page should only have one h1. And now for the text that you want to get on the screen, you can refer to the finished deployed website. The link to the deployed website is going to be down below. And that's going to be a special domain name that we took at the start and that will deploy our page on later on. Now, when it comes to the content that you want to put within the h1, for that and all the other text elements, you can refer to the finished deployed website. And that website isn't going to be on this link that we have right here. It's going to be a special deployment of the website we're building right now, which is why I haven't yet deployed it. But once it is done, it's going to be deployed on Hostinger's fast servers with a special, unique domain name. So down in the description, you can find the deployed version of this application. Click it, open it up, and then you can copy the text right here. It's going to be Putuk Truno Camp Area. I hope I spelled that correctly. Now, if we go back, we have to give it a class name of bold52, and on large devices, bold88, so even bolder. Below, we can render a p tag that's going to have a class name equal to regular-16, margin top of 6, text-gray of 30, and on extra large devices, we wanted to keep a specific width of max-w within square brackets 520 pixels. So now we want to copy this text below and we can paste it within this p tag. We want to be on each one of your journeys seeking satisfaction. This is great. So now if we save this, you can see the text appear right below. And finally, we can show these stars and then good reviews. So to show the stars, we can go below this p tag, create a new div element that's going to have a class name equal to margin y of 11 to divide it a bit from top and bottom, flex, flex-wrap, and a gap of 5. Within it, we can have another div that's going to have a class name equal to flex, items-center, and gap of 2 to provide some space between the stars. And now we want to create a new dynamic block of code where we generate a new array of 5 elements, use the .fill to fill them with a number 1, and then we map over them. We don't need the item we're looping over, so we can simply put an underscore, but we do need the index. So we can say index, and then we can immediately return an image for each one of these items in the array. This image has to be imported from next image, and we can say source is /star.svg. It's going to have a key equal to index since we're looping over it, an alt tag of star, a width of 24, and a height of 24 as well. If we save it, you get 5 wonderful looking stars, and then we're simply missing the rating. So below this first div right here, we can put a p tag that's going to say 198k, meaning 1000, and then below, so we can first have this piece of text, and then still within the p tag, we can render a span element. And this span is going to say excellent reviews. Now, if we save it, this is looking good, but the p tag itself is going to have a class name of bold-16, on large devices bold of 20, and text-blue-70. So if we save this, okay, and now we want to also modify the span by giving it a class name of regular-16, on large devices regular 20, margin left of 1 to divide it a bit from the number, and then underline. So if we save this, you can see 198,000 excellent reviews. And I don't even think we need the underline. It might look better without it. There we go. In case you want to make it clickable to point to somewhere, you can then add an underline. Now let's go below this p tag and below the div and create another div. This is going to be a wrapper for our buttons. As you can see, we have the download app and how we work. So this div is going to have a class name equal to flex, w-full, so it takes the full width of the screen, gap-3 to provide some space between the elements, and on small devices, flex-row. Immediately within there, we can render our first button, which we need to import from our /button. So this is in components. It's going to be a type equal to button. It's going to have a title equal to download app, and it's going to have a variant equal to btn_green. So if we add this, you can see this wonderful download app button. Let's put all of the props in a new line so it's a bit easier to see. And we can duplicate this button one more time below. And this time, it's going to say how we work. This is a second button. It's going to have an icon as well, equal to /play.svg, and it's going to be a btn white text. So if we save this, now we have 2 different buttons. And if we expand it, they're going to show one below another as well. And here they show one next to another, but if we give it a flex-call, they're going to show one below another to make them even more clickable. And I hope now you can see what I meant when I call this a reusable component. We use it in 2 different places, or 3 rather, with totally different styles. So now you can notice that TypeScript is complaining that variant btn green, as well as variant btn text white, don't exist on the button. So let's get into it, and let's define that the variant simply has to be of a type string. Then any string is going to be fine, and it's no longer going to complain. So now below the button, we want to show this great looking second part of the image, which is going to be like a div that says the location, distance, elevation of a specific point in the map. And on mobile devices, this is looking good, but on desktop devices, This is looking fantastic. It connects to our background image and it actually shows how our app is going to look like. It shows that we can see different camping sites, the distance of how far we are from them, and the elevation we have to take to get there. So this is pretty cool. First, let's develop it on our mobile mode, and then we can show it on the large size as well. So we can go 2 divs down. That's going to be 1, 2. And then here, we can create another div. This div is going to have a class name equal to relative. It's going to have a flex of 1, and the items of start. Let's also give it a border of 2 and border -blue -500. If we do this and go back to our website, you can see this line appear right here. So now as we add items within this, you're going to know what are we working on. Within this div, let's create another div. This div is going to have a class name, also relative, because we're trying to position this nicely on the screen, a z index of 20 to appear on top of the elements, a w meaning width of 268 pixels. I found this value to work the best. It's going to have a flex-col, so the elements within it are going to appear in a column, a gap of 8 to provide some space for the elements, rounded -3xl, and then most importantly, BG green of 90. This is going to be, well, not really a green, but it's a dark gray color. And we'll finally be able to see it once we give it a padding X of 7 and a padding Y of 8. We can save it, and now we can see what we have been working on. We have created this container that now has this rectangle that's going to show our location. So let's remove all of the borders for now. The one on the top, that's going to be red 500 and border 2. We can remove this comment as well. And then let's also remove this border blue and border 2. Great. Now within this div, we're going to create another div. This div is going to have a class name equal to flex and flex-col. And within this div, we're going to have another div. Right now, we're just working on creating this structure that we can then position all the elements on the screen. So this div is going to simply have a class name equal to flex between. Now, finally, within this div, we can show a p tag. This p tag is going to say location. And if we save it, you cannot see it yet because it's dark. So let's give it a class name equal to regular -16 and text-gray -20. There we go. And let's also render an image that's going to have a source equal to close.svg, alt of close, width of 24, and height of 24 as well. There we go. So now this appears like a div that we can close, or like a pop-up, indicating that our app is going to be functional. Now we can duplicate this entire flex between right here below. We can remove everything we have within it and create a new div that's going to have a class name equal to flex and flex-col. Within it, we can have 2 different p tags. The first one is going to say distance, and the second one is going to render the actual value for the distance, such as 173.28 miles, like so. Of course, we have to style them, so let's give it a class name equal to regular-16 block and text-gray -20. And the second one can have a class name equal to bold-20 text-white. So now you can see we're slowly starting to create this specific layout. And you can notice that we added the value for the distance, but we didn't add the value for the location. So right here, below this div wrapping the image, we can create another p tag that's going to say aguas calientes. And hopefully I didn't spell that wrong, but we can give it a class name equal to bold-20 and text-white. So now you can see it here as well. But I noticed that I wrongly closed a specific div. So we actually don't want to close it here. We want to close it right here beforehand. So you want to put a closing div sign here to close this flex-col, and then remove the one that we have here on line 71 on my screen. So let me just position this correctly so you can see what's happening. we have a div called flex and flex call, which I'm going to divide from everything. And this div contains a div with the image and the location. And then we have the actual value of the location. Then right below this div, so once we close it, we have another div with a flex between that has those two other properties. And now you can duplicate the div with the flex and flex call, and we can just change the values. We can say elevation, and we can do something like 2 kilometers. So there we go. So now you have everything right here. And if you compare it to the finished design, you can see we're missing some spacing right here. And also we're missing a couple of characters here. So let's first add those characters, 2.040. Yeah, that's good. And then also we can make this into a flex container. That way the flex properties will be applied and then it's going to provide some space. So now this is looking perfect. And as I said, this is one of these hero sections that looks significantly better on desktop devices than it does on mobile. But hey, it looks great on mobile too. Let's expand it to admire it in its full glory. There we go. It takes almost the full height of the screen. You have the nice heading and summary on the left side with the reviews and call to action buttons. And then we have a map and then this floating div appear on top of it. It almost feels like it is interactive, but it's all just design. So now we can collapse this. And with that, we're done with the homepage. So let's exit out of it and let's move into the second section of the day, which is the camp section. Within here, we'll have to implement something that looks like this. And does this look great? So we're going to have these images, and no, this text is not a part of the image. We're going to place it there, and then we have another one so it appears like we can scroll through it. And then we even have another overlay showing on top of these two images. This is quite an exciting section. It feels like animations would come in handy right here. So if you want me to implement some animations, let me know, because I can already see how these elements would fly around if we had some. So now let's collapse this. On mobile, you can see we try to make the best of it. It still functions, right? Even though you might think, oh, how are we going to display this in mobile? We can do that, as you can see here. So let's focus on developing the camp section next. There will be some relative and absolute positioning, but don't worry, we're going to make it happen. To get started with our camp section, we're also going to convert it into a section. So right here, we can wrap everything in a section and give it a class name equal to. We're again going to start with a border of 2 and border. Let's do green this time, 500, just so we can see visually where we are. We can then give it a 2XL max container. So on extra large devices, it's going to be full width, relative, flex, flex-call, padding Y of 10 to give it some padding. On large devices, margin bottom of 10. On large devices, padding Y of 20. On extra large devices, margin bottom of 20. So as you can see, we have added a lot of different responsive classes to this. So we ensure it looks good on all different kinds of devices. Notice how it doesn't go full width. This is this max container. It's never going to take full width of the screen. Rather, it's going to leave some space on the left and the right. So now within this section, we can have a div, and this div is going to have a class name of hide-scroll bar. We don't want to show a scroll bar right here. It's going to have a flex and a h of 340 pixels. So this is for the height. As you can see, this is going to give it some height. Then w-full, so it's going to be full width. Items-start, justify-start, and a gap of 8. So we have some space for the elements within it. The elements specifically are going to be two different campsites. It's going to be the one on the left and the one on the right. We also want to give it an overflow of X auto. On large devices, h of 400, so that's for the height, 400 pixels. And on extra large, height is going to be 640 pixels. So this ensures that it looks good on mobile, like it does here. As we grow it, looks a bit better. We fit one, and then the second one appears as well. Now, let's go right here to the one, and let's actually create this camp site. we're going to have two campsites, so why not just reuse them? What we can do is create a new const campsite, which is going to be a new functional component right at the top that's going to return a div. And now we can refer to this as campsite1, and we can simply call it as a reusable component right here within the div. If you do that, you can notice campsite1, but this now allows us to just copy it and have a campsite2. So let's pass some props to it. The first prop is going to be the background image of bg img1. I know, a funny name. We can later on play with the naming of these items. Then we have the title. In this case, it's going to be, let's try to see it here, Putuk Truno Camp. Then we also need to have a subtitle equal to, we can copy it from here. And then we have people joined. You can see that on the bottom. Let's do something like 50 plus joined. And now we have everything we need to display it here, but we have to accept it as props right here at the top. So let's define the camp props. Well, let's first get them by saying background image, title, subtitle, and then people joined. And this is going to be of a type, or of an interface, camp props. So let's define those camp props at the top by saying interface, camp props, and we need a background image, which is going to be a string. Let's spell it correctly, background image. We're going to also have a title of a type string. We're going to have a subtitle of a type string, and people joined of a type string as well. And now we can start creating it. So this div is going to have a class name equal to h-full, w-full, min-width of 1100 pixels. But now we want to render this image. So to render it, we need to turn this into a template string, just like so. And now we can render the background image that we're passing through props. And now you can see the first image appear right here. And if you scroll horizontally, which you can do if you have a horizontal scrolling mouse, then you'll be able to see it right here. Or if you just enlarge your screen, you can see two of the campsites right here. So now let's go back. Let's also give it a BG cover and BG no repeat. Let's also make it on large devices rounded -r-5XL. So on right corners are going to be rounded, and on 2XL, meaning really large devices, rounded -5XL. Everything is going to be rounded. So now if we expand it, you can see that it is rounded exactly as it is on the finished design. So now let's also collapse it, and let's actually make this text visible that we have on top left by creating another div within it. This div is going to have a class name equal to flex, h-full, flex-call, items-start, justify-between, padding of 6, so P6, on large devices padding X of 20, and on large devices padding Y of 10. So now we're creating this structure within which we're going to put this. And again, if you're not sure what we're working on, just do a border of 2 and border -blue -500, and now we can see it. So now this div is wrapping this entire first image that we have. You can see it more clearly here where we have no image. I'm going to remove it just for now. Within this div, we can have another div that's going to have a class name equal to flex center and a gap of 4. And within it, we can have a final div that's going to wrap our image. So let's give it a class name of rounded-full, bg-green-50, and a padding of 4. You can see this circle here. It's the same circle that's going to hold this image. So right within it, let's render the self-closing image tag that's going to have a source equal to folded-map.svg, alt tag of map, a width of 28, and a height of 28 as well. And of course, we have to import image from next image. Once you do that, you can see it. Below this div wrapping the image, we can create another div that's going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-col, gap of 1. And within it, you can display an h4 element that's going to say title. And below it, we can render a p tag that's going to display the subtitle. Although these are going to be hard to see right now, as you can see as they're dark, we can give them a class name equal to bold of 18 and a text of white. That makes it look better. And for the subtitle, we can give it a class name of regular-14 and a text of white. And now this text is not yet visible here, but on the finished side, it should appear right below it. So we definitely have to see where this one went. It must have gotten lost somewhere, but don't worry, we're going to find it. Oh, there we go. Subtitle, right? Now TypeScript was alerting us all this time that we're not passing the right props. As soon as we passed it, it's looking good. And then we want to implement this cool little component where we can show different icons of people that have already joined. So we can go 2 divs down, so 1, 2, and then create a new div that's going to be a wrapper for our people by giving it a class name equal to flex center and a gap of 6. Within it, we can render a span element that's going to have a class name equal to flex minus space dash x dash 4 and overflow of hidden. Within it, we can use another one of our constants called people underscore URL. And we have to import this from add/constants, call the dot map on it, and then get the URL of these people and immediately return what? An image for each one of them. An image that has a source equal to URL, a key equal to URL, an alt tag equal to person, a width of 52, and a height of 52 as well. And now it's going to complain saying that the URL does not exist. And that's because I just typed it as a regular string instead of referencing the real URL. Once you do that, you can see those 4 people appear right here and they look great. We can also give this image a class name equal to inline-block h-10 for height, w-10 for width, and rounded-full. So now we have these nice 4 circles. Right below that span, we can render a p tag that's going to say people joined. It's going to be dynamic. And then we can give it a class name equal to bold of 16. On medium devices, bold of 20. Let me remove this character. And then finally, text-white. So now we can see 50 people joined, and this is looking great on mobile. Let me just remove this border green so it looks even better. But now, as we expand, and as there's place for another one, you can see that it appears right here. We have the text, and we have just the map and the people, but we don't yet have the image. So the only thing we have to do to make this work is to get real values for the second one. In this case, it's going to be mountain view. So let's simply add it right here as props. So we can copy the existing props, paste them here, and then copy mountain view as the title. Somewhere in the wild is going to be the subtitle. So we can paste that right here as well. We don't see how many people have joined, but let's do 50 as well. And then the image is going to be bg image 2. If we save this and go back, you can see we have 2 of these. And I have a Logitech mouse, so I have a horizontal scroll. You can also scroll through them. You can play with it and later on implement maybe an icon that you can click right here that moves to the second one. Pretty cool. And we can expand it to its full glory so you can see more of all of them. This is great. But now let's make this div appear on top of them. To do that, let's go back here and implement it for mobile first. Below our 2 campsites and below the div, we can create one more div. And this is going to be for that pop-up that we have. Let's give it a class name equal to flex end, margin top of 10 to divide it a bit from the top, padding x of 6. On large devices, minus margin top of 60 to make it appear like it's flowing on top of that element, not below it. And on large devices, margin right of 6. Now within this div, we'll have to create another div to position it properly. So let's give it a class name equal to bg-green-50, padding of 8. If we save this, you can see this square appear right here. Let's continue by giving it on large devices max-w of within square brackets 500 pixels, but on extra large devices, a max-w of 734 pixels. And save it. On extra large devices, we also want to give it a rounded -5xl to make the corners rounded. On extra large devices, padding x of 16 to give some space. And on extra large devices as well, we also want to give it a padding y of 20. So now if we save this, you can see it's still a square, right? But we can give it a position of relative, w of full for full width, and overflow -hidden. Finally, rounded -3xl. So now we have this rectangle. Now within it, we're going to have an h2 that's going to render the text, something like feeling lost and not knowing the way. Let's add that there. Feeling lost has to be bolded, so we can put it right here within the HTML5 strong tag. So let's wrap only feeling lost within it. So if we do that, this is looking good. Let's style the entire h2 by giving it a class name equal to regular-24. On medium devices, regular 32 to make it a bit bigger. On 2XL, which is larger devices, even more, regular 64. It's going to be capitalized, so large text, and also text-white. There we go. Capitalized makes the first letter big or capitalized, even if you type it small right here. But in this case, it doesn't make a difference because we have spelled it properly here. Below it, we want to have a p tag. And this p tag can have a class name equal to regular-14. On extra large devices, regular of 16, margin top of 5, and text-white. So now we can copy this description that we have from here and paste it below. Now, if you save this and go back, you can see this is looking great. But notice how on the finish side, we have these quote signs. So let's add them. Below this p tag, we can render an image. We can give it a source equal to /quote.svg, an alt equal to camp-2, a width of about 186 pixels, and a height of about 219. And then a class name equal to camp-quote. If we save this, you can see they nicely appear right here below the text. And as you expand this to the full desktop view, you can see it scrolls all the way up to this point where it actually shows on top of the content, which is great. This is done by using these media queries that we have here. And then you can see if we go, it looks even better on large devices. So this is looking wonderful. I like this section even more maybe than the hero section, but I think it's also a part of the hero section, right? As you're here, you immediately notice this and it draws you in. So this is looking wonderful. And again, we made it work on mobile devices as well. The next section that we have to do is the guide section. Let's see how does it look like. There we go. We have a title, subtitle, and then some description, and then an image. But it's not an image. It's actually HTML that we're going to develop right here, indicating how our app is going to work. We have a start track, and then we have a destination, number of minutes, and then a line pointing to it. So let's go ahead and build out our next section, which is the guide. To get started with the guide, we can first turn it into a section. And this section is going to have a class name equal to flex center, as well as flex-call. And that's going to make this guide text disappear. Right within it, we can create a div And this div is going to have a class name. Let's do a border of 2 and border red 500. We can also give it a padding container so it knows exactly how much space it needs to take, as well as max container. This is going to spread it across the entire width when we give it a w-full and a padding bottom of 24. Now you can see that it's starting to appear. Right within it, we can render an image. So just like so, and we need to import it from next image. Let's give it a source equal to camp.svg, an alt tag of camp, a width of 50, and a height of 50 as well. And that's going to show this little camp icon. Now, right within it, we can show a p tag, and this p tag is going to say, we are here for you. So let's simply paste it here. You can either write it uppercase like this, or you can write it lowercase, we are here for you. And then you can give this p tag a class name equal to uppercase. And that's going to use CSS to update the text capitalization. We can also give it a regular of 18, a minus margin top -1 to kind of make it appear closer to the camp, margin bottom of 3, and text -green -50. There we go. Now right below it, we can have a div, and this div is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-wrap, justify -between, gap of 5, and on large devices, a bit of a larger gap of 10. Within here, we can position our heading. So let's create a heading 2 that's going to say, guide you to easy path. And below it, we can also have a p tag. And within the p tag, we can paste this text that we have right here. Now, if we go back, we can style it a bit better by giving this h2 a class name equal to bold 40. That's going to make it much larger. On large devices, bold 64, so even larger. And on extra large devices, max width of 390 pixels. So now if we expand it, you can see it's nicely taking the screen, but then it gets even larger here. And then on extra large, it's not going to go over a specific height. It's going to stick to the container. Great. So let's also style the p tag by giving it a class name equal to regular-16, text-gray-30, and on extra large devices, max W of 520 pixels. So if we save this, it's going to look just a bit more muted, exactly like it does on the design. And now we can render this image, and then on top of that image, we can render this nice div that looks great on regular devices, as well as mobile devices. So how do we render that? Well, we'll have to go below this p tag, and below 2 more divs, exit out of this last div, be within the section, and here we can create another div. This div is going to have a class name equal to flex center, max container, relative, and w-full. And we can also give it a border of 2 and border of blue 500, just so we can see where it is. It's right below this one. Within it, we can render this great looking boat image by creating an image, giving it a source equal to boat.png. Alt is going to be boat. Width is going to be 1440p, like this. And height is going to be 580 pixels. If we save this, we have this wonderful looking image, but we do want to style it a bit. We want to give it a class name equal to w-full, object-cover, object-center, and on 2XL, really large devices, rounded-5XL. Although nothing changed on mobile, it did change on desktop devices. So you can see how now it behaves really nicely on large devices, and it has these rounded borders. Now we can display this div on top of it. So let's collapse it, and let's go below the image by creating a new div. This time, we're going to have to use a class name of absolute, as we'll have to show it on top. So we're going to say absolute, flex, bg of white, padding y of 8, and padding left of 5, and padding right of 7. So you want to have specific paddings right here, and you can see that now we have this rectangle on top of it. We can also give it a gap of 3 and make it a bit rounded saying 3XL, and we can give it a border. So now that's how it looks like a pill. Then we can give it a shadow, so it appears like it's on top by saying shadow MD. And on medium devices, we can move it a bit to the left by 5%, like so. And on large devices, we can move it to the top by 20, like this. So now it is nicely positioned in the center, and it's waiting to accept some things within it, so it looks good. So right within it, we can create a container div that's going to have a class name equal to flex between and flex call, because we want the elements to appear in a column. Right within it, we also want to create another div that's going to have a class name equal to flex w-full and flex-call one more time, because we want to show the destination as well as the minutes to that destination here, and we can repeat that later on for the track. So within here, we can create a new div that's going to have a class name equal to flex between and w-full. There we can have two different p tags. The first p tag is going to render the text of destination, and the second one is going to render 48 minutes. If we save this, you can see it nicely appeared there. Right below this div, we can create another p tag that's going to say Aguas Calientes, again, one of the locations in our application. Now we can style these p tags. The first one, the destination, is going to have a class name of regular 16, text-gray-20, and then the actual minutes to destination is going to have a class name equal to bold 16 and text-green-50. It's important to differentiate different things within our design. And finally, this location is going to have a bold 20 and margin top of 2 to divide it a bit from the top. Now we can duplicate this entire flex, w-full flex call. So let's duplicate this below. And then we don't need to have an internal div, so we can remove this div. We're simply going to have two p tags, but this time they're going to say something like start track. And then instead of this second p tag, which we can remove, we're going to have an h4. So right here, let's say h4, and we can give it white space, no wrap, and we can also copy the location. So this time it's going to be this location right here. Let's paste it right here and save it. And if you go back, you can see how it looks like. But I think you can notice that we're missing something. We're missing this little illustration that we have here, which is a meter. And it makes a huge difference right here, right? This right here looks like a bunch of data, and this makes so much more sense. We have a start track and a destination. So right here within this div with the class name of absolute, let's add an image. And this image is going to have a source of /meter.svg. Alt is going to be meter. Width is going to be 16 pixels. Height is going to be 158 pixels. And class name is going to be h-full w-auto. So if we save this and go back, you can see that it appeared right here as well. Although we do have some empty characters, I added this I here, which I need to remove. And once we fix it, it's looking exactly like it does on the design. We can remove these borders. So right here, I have a red border. And below, I have a blue border. So once I remove those two, you can see everything is looking great. And it's looking even better on larger devices. How good is that? So you can see as we scroll, we have this one, and then you go a bit down. And now what you get is this wonderful guide you to easy path where you can see how it's actually going to guide you if you're going by boat. So this is phenomenal. And this brings us to the end of the guide section. Short, sweet, yet so highly effective. The next one is the features section. And the features are going to look like this. This is a typical section that every single application has, but we're going to make it so interesting. We have this image and we have the background of the map tracks that you can see right here. And then we have 4 different icons with different features that we can list. Now, if you go a bit smaller, you can see the phone follows. At one point, the phone completely disappears, right? Sometimes you have to make changes to accommodate for mobile and tablet designs. And then if you go even smaller, they start appearing in a column. So it is completely mobile responsive for all screens from almost zero all the way to a huge HD display. So now let's go back here and let's focus on the features. To get started with our features section, we can wrap everything within a section. And this section is going to, again, have a class name equal to border of 2. And let's do a border red 500 so we can easily spot it. So if we go back, you can see just the red line appear. Let's give it a flex dash call, also flex center, overflow dash hidden, so we don't have any scroll bars that are going to ruin the look. BG feature BG, this is going to apply a background image, and then BG center, BG no repeat, and padding Y of 24. Once you add this, you'll see that we have this great looking div that has the background image of these map tracks. Now within it, we want to create another div that's going to have a class name equal to max container. So what this does, we used it a couple of times so far. If you're wondering what something does, go to search, paste it here, and find it within the globals. It's just applying a margin X of auto and then a max width on 1440p. So even if you have an ultra wide display, it's going to have a max width that it fits within one screen so you can easily see what the page is about. Let me give you an example. If I expand, you can see this text right here, it never goes above 1440p. Everything is contained nicely within this view. And even if you increase it even further, it's always going to remain in the center really nicely. Great. So now let's go back. We're going to also give it a padding container. So we have consistent spacing on left and right. It's going to be relative, W-full, and we want to justify the elements to the end this time. Why? Because if I go here, you can see they want to be right here in the end. Now, first, we want to show the left side. And on the left side, we're going to have a div that's going to contain an image. So here we can import image from next image. You can give it a source equal to /phone.png. Alt is going to be phone. Width is going to be about 440 pixels. And height is going to be about 1000 pixels with a class name equal to feature-phone. So if we save this, you're not going to see anything on small devices right now. But if I expand, you can see this phone start to appear right here. Let's style it a bit better by giving this div a class name equal to flex, flex-1, and then on large devices, min-h-900 pixels. This is going to increase the height on large devices. So now we can see the full phone. Now let's start focusing on the right side, which are the actual features. So I can now collapse this, and we can go below this div right here, containing the phone, and create another div. This div is going to have a class name equal to Z of 20, so it appears on top, flex, W-full for full width, flex-column, so they appear one on top of another on mobile devices, and on large devices, W of 60%. So the features section is going to take 60%, whereas the phone and everything else is going to take about 40, as you can see right here. So now let's go back. Within this div, we're going to have another div that's going to have a class name equal to relative. And it's relative because we want to show this camp image one more time. It's going to look like this on top of our features. So let's render this image by giving it a source equal to /camp.svg. Alt tag is going to be camp. Width is going to be about 50. And height is going to be 50 as well. If we save it, you can see this camp appear right here. Right below the image, we want to create an H2. And this H2 is going to say R features. There we go. Let's style it a bit by giving it a class name equal to bold-40. On large devices, bold of 64, so even larger. But still, it's not like this camp is floating on top of our features like it does here. So we need to position it absolutely by giving this image a class name of absolute. And now we can move it around a bit, such as left minus 5 pixels, top of minus 28 pixels, and already it's better. We can give it a width of 10. On large devices, the width is going to be 50 pixels. So if we save this, and now if we expand it, you can see it's still on top, still on top. Here, it's still on top, as you can see, and it's looking good. Although it seems that the features is not on the right side of the phone. So we have to see if we placed it in the right div. So we have the section first, and then we have the div that's wrapping everything. The section and this, we have the left side containing the image, the phone, and then we have the right side right here. I do believe that's good, but to be able to see for ourselves, below this div wrapping this image, let's create a UL, an unordered list. And this UL is going to show all of the different features. Now, as before, we could create an array that's then going to contain all of these different text elements, such as real maps can be offline, and then we type that here. Then we have a different one and we duplicate this many different times. But again, we're going to use these features directly from the constants. So we can say features and then import it from @/constants, say .map, where we get each individual feature. And for each one, we return something known as a feature item. And this is a self-closing component that we are yet to create, as we are reusing it 4 different times. Since we're going to use it only in this page, we can define it right here below. Const feature item is equal to, and this is going to be a functional component with a return. For now, let's simply return a div that's going to say, let's render a title, maybe that we can pass to it. And we need to get this title as a prop. Now, immediately, it's going to require it here. We can say title is equal to feature.title. There we go. So now if we save it and go back, scroll all the way down, you can see we have 4 different features. Real maps can be offline, set an adventure schedule, technology using augmented reality, and many new locations every month. Now we have to style it a bit. So let's pass all of the necessary things from features, such as the title, icon, variant, and description. And then based off of that, we can display anything we need. So let's put this in multiple lines. Alongside title, we need to pass a key equal to feature.title because it's going to be unique. We can pass an icon equal to feature.icon. We can pass a variant, which is going to be feature.variant. And we can pass a description, which is going to be equal to feature.description. And now we can accept all of these props right here. That's going to be icon, variant, and description. And these are going to be of a type feature item. So now we can define an interface or a type right here. Feature item is equal to title is a string, icon is a string, variant is a string, and description will also be a string. Now nobody is complaining or passing exactly what we need to be passing. So now let's style this a bit better. Instead of a div, this is going to be an li, a list item. And this list item is going to have a class name equal to flex w-full flex 1. This is how it expands naturally. Flex-call and items-start. Didn't change a lot, right? Then we can create a div within it that's going to render the icon. So this div right here is going to have a class name equal to rounded-full, padding of 4, and on large devices, padding of 7. And within it, we can render the image. This image is going to have a source of icon, an alt of something like a map, width is going to be 28, and height is going to be 28 as well. If we save it, you should be able to see 4 different icons, although it's hard to see them as they're white. So let's simply give them a BG green 50. Like this. There we go. Much better. And now that I look at it, we don't have to have an orange one. It just sticks out. So we don't have to pass a variant. It's enough if we simply always make it green. So I'm going to remove the variant from top as well. And now, below this div, we can render an h2 that's going to have a class name of bold 20, on large devices bold 32, margin top of 5, and capitalize. And then within it, we can simply render what? The title. So if we save it, you can see the title. And below it, you can render a description. It looks like this, but we can style it a bit by giving it a class name equal to regular of 16, margin top of 5, BG white over 80, so we're going to give it a background. Now you can see this was a small little detail, but see how much more legible it is? You cannot see the lines that are going behind it. See if I remove it, lines are now going within the text and it makes it that much harder to read. Whereas with this, now you can read the text more clearly. Let's also give it a text dash gray of 30. On large devices, margin top of 30 pixels. And on large devices, BG of none, because the map is not going to appear on top of it. Now, if we expand this, you can see it's still not looking perfect. It's appearing all the way here to the left. That's because we didn't yet provide a class name to this UL. So this UL can have a class name of MT10, margin top of 10. It's going to be a grid. It's going to have a gap of 10 between the elements. Now already this is going to make a bit of a difference. On medium devices, we want it to show in grid dash cols dash 2, meaning 2 columns. Already, it's a bit better. On large devices, we can give it a margin top of 20. On large devices, we can also give it a gap of 20. And now it's still not appearing on the right side of the phone how we want it. So let's check the class names of our outer divs. I think I missed a flex property right here because justify end cannot work if it's not a flex container. So if you add it, you can see it appears nicely. We can remove this ugly border red. And now we have our wonderful looking section with a phone right here. And then as you collapse, you can notice the phone moves a bit. This is looking great. The text wraps. And then we have only the features on tablet. And then on mobile, we have just one single column. This is looking wonderful. And again, a couple of insights here. We just learned how to create reusable components once again and pass different props. We again used our constants, so we don't have to define all of this within the component itself. Rather, we extracted from another file. And now everything is really simple, easy to understand. The entire features section has 44 lines of the component, and then another 20 or so lines for the feature item, which is our reusable component. So this is pretty cool, and I'm pretty happy with how the features section has turned out. Now below it, we need to have something that every single app has, which is the Get App section, also known as a CTA, or a call to action. After understanding what your app is about, you want your users to download it. So let's create this section by going back to the homepage and then moving into the Get App section. As always, we're going to get started with wrapping this in a section and giving it some class names to make sure that it fits with the rest of the design. So that's going to be the class name of Flex Center, W-full for full width, Flex-col so the elements appear in a column, padding bottom of 100 pixels. Now, within this section, we want to have a div that's going to have a class name equal to get app. And this is going to give it this background that you can see to kind of make it stand out from the all white backgrounds. This simply applies a background image. Then we can give it one div inside of it that's going to do the left side. So on the left side, we want to have get for free now, available on iOS and Android. And then we have 2 buttons. So let's do the left side first, or top on mobile, by giving it a class name of Z of 20, so it appears on top, flex, W-full, flex-1, so it expands naturally, flex-call, items-start, justify-center, and gap of 12 to create some spacing between the elements. Within it, we can create an H2 and say get for free now. And below it, we can have a p tag that's going to say available on iOS and Android. If we save it, it's going to be hard to notice, or no, it's white, so we can see it, but we can style it further by giving it a class name of bold 40. On large devices, bold 64. On extra large devices, we want to give it a max W of 320 pixels. For the p tag, we can give it a class name of regular 16 and text-gray-10. Notice how we're using the same colors and the same fonts for all the p tags and same fonts and colors for all h2 tags. We need to stay consistent. Below this p tag, we can render a div, and this div is going to render two self-closing button components, which we have to import from /button. We can give it a type equal to button. We can give it a title equal to download app. We can give it an icon equal to apple.svg. We can give it a variant equal to btn underscore white. And we can give it something known as a full. So this is a new prop we're going to add, which is going to make it full screen. So you can see this button right here, but we can move into it. We can accept this new property, which is going to be full, and we can define its type as full, optional, Boolean. So sometimes it's going to be there. If it's full, we simply want to add an additional style. So we can say if full, and we're going to add a string of W full, like so. So this is going to give it full width on mobile devices, so it expands just a tiny bit more. Now going back, we can duplicate this button below, and this one is going to say download app, but it's going to be Android. And it's going to be BTN dark green outline. So now we have two download apps. They can be a bit different. So let's maybe do, instead of download, let's say Play Store. I believe that's the store for Android. And then we have App Store. So you can download from two different stores. There we go. Now I can notice if I hover over the button, it is hover, but if I go over the text, it is just a regular pointer, not a cursor. So let's go into the button, and this label can also have a cursor of pointer. So now if I hover, you can see it seems like a singular button. Now we have two buttons. Let's style them a bit by styling this div within which they are by giving it a class name of flex, W-full, flex-call. Now you can see what I meant, right? They're stretching for the full height. They're stretching for the full width. Gap of 3 to create some space. White space. No wrap. And on extra large devices, flex row. So now we have those two buttons. And if we move it around, you can see it's nicely on the left side. But that's because we haven't yet added the right side. So let's do that right now by going below two of these divs and creating another div that's going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-1, items-center, and justify-end. And now here we can simply render an image. This image is going to have a source equal to /phones.svg. Alt can be phones. Width is going to be 550 and height is going to be 870 pixels. Now we have to import image from next image. And once you do that, you'll be able to scroll down and see that we have nothing. Where did our phone image go? We cannot see it here, that's for sure. It seems like it's breaking. There we go, phones. So we need to say phones.png in this case. And once you do that, we have our wonderful phones right here. And notice this, on HD devices, it appears like some kind of a rectangle here, and nicely the phone falls within it. So it seems like a whole featured section, right? You dive into it and you're ready to move in. It just drags you into it. But on smaller devices like this, it is just another section of the screen, like here, which is good. So now you can get it. This is looking good. And with that, we have replicated this section as well. And we're moving to the last part of our application, which is the footer. So on the footer here, we have a lot of information. So to display it, we can exit out of our page, move into the layout, and then go to our footer component. I'm not sure if you're happy or sad, but we're getting close to this amazing build. It was a phenomenal one. We just have to finish the footer, and then we're getting to the exciting stuff, which is deploying this on your own custom domain and incredibly fast hosting. So you can share it with everyone and show what you're capable of doing. To start creating our footer, we can use the HTML5 semantic footer tag like this, and give it a class name equal to flex center, as well as margin bottom of 24. Then we can have a div within it, and this div can have a class name equal to padding container, max container, flex, w-full, flex-col, and a gap of 14. Col with just one L, of course. We're just creating the layout for what is yet to become the footer component, which is pretty amazing here. We have a lot of stuff happening. Within this div, we can create another div, and this one is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-col, items-start, justify-center, gap of 10%. I found this value to work the best here. And on medium devices, it's going to be flex row. Within here, we can render a link. This link has to be imported from Next.link, and it has to have an href, meaning where is it pointing? It's pointing to just /, meaning home. And we're going to give it a class name of margin bottom of 10. Within here, we can render an image tag, which we have to import from Next image. We can give it a source equal to highlink -logo.svg, an alt tag of logo, a width of 74, a height of 29. And if we save this, you can see just the logo that we have, which is the starting point of our footer. Below this, we can render a div that's going to wrap all of our footer links. So this div is going to have a class name of flex-wrap, so they wrap nicely on all screen sizes, gap of 10, on small devices, justify between, and on medium devices, flex 1. And now here, we can open up a new dynamic block of code and get the footer underscore links, which is coming from @/constants. We want to map over those links, or rather, these are going to be columns. We're going to have multiple columns of multiple links. So we can immediately return a new component called a footer column, like this. This footer column is a component that we can create right here below. So we can say const footer column, which is going to accept two props, a title and children. And then we can immediately return something. For now, let's return a div that's going to render an h4 that's going to render the title. Of course, we have to define the types. So here we can say this is going to be of a footer column props. And then we can define this new type, footer column props, which is going to have a title of a type string, as well as children of a type React.React node. So let me explain what this children means. Well, you can see this footer column is not a self-closing component. We can put something within it, and whatever you put within it is considered children. And then we can also pass it a title. So let's say title is a column.title. If I save this, you can see we have learn more and our community. And then below the title, we can render the children. And the children, as I said, is whatever you pass into it. So for now, it's ASD. But instead of passing that within it, we want to pass a UL, an unordered list. This unordered list is going to have a class name equal to regular-14, flex-col, gap of 4, and text-gray-30. within it, we can now do another block of code, dynamic, and say columns dot links dot map, where we get each individual link, and for each link, we return a link component that has an href for now pointing to / and a key of link, and we just render a link within the link, like so. So if I save this, you can see all of these different links appear. Now, where are these coming from? Well, if you go into the footer links in constants, you can notice we have a title, and then we have another links array within it that's going to show all the links that should appear below a specific column. Now, if we go back, we can style our footer column just a bit more by giving it a class name equal to flex-col, and a gap of 5. Finally, this h4 can have a class name of bold-18 and white space, no wrap. So if we save this, you can see we have columns, and then we have clickable links right here, which for now simply lead to the top of the page, but you can of course make them lead anywhere you want by simply modifying this href property. Great. So now we have our footer links, which are learn more, and our community. We also want to do contact us, and then we want to do social as well. So if we go below the footer links, right here where they end, we can create another div. And this div is going to have a class name equal to flex-col, and a gap of 5. And there we can once again render a reusable footer column component that's going to have a title equal to footer contact info dot title. And this footer contact, if we spell it properly, info has to be imported from constants as well. And then within it, we can render the footer contact info dot links dot map, where we get each individual link, and for each one, we render a link component. This link component has to have an href, meaning where is it going. It has to have a key equal to link.label. It has to have a class name equal to flex, a gap of 4 to create some space. On medium devices, flex-col. On large devices, flex-row, because we have more space to fit them in a single row. Within it, we want to render a p tag that's going to have a class name equal to white space, no wrap. And this is just applying a no wrap property on it. And we can render the link.label and then add a colon like this. So this is going to be the admin officer and email officer. And then below it, you can render another p tag that's going to render the link.value. This is going to be the actual numbers and emails. And we can give it a class name equal to medium of 14, white space, no wrap, and then a text of blue 70. If we save it, you can see this looks good. This email officer has a double column. So if I go to footer contact, you can remove the column from here because we already have it within the app. There we go. And now we can go below this footer column and below one more div, and we can render one of the final parts of the footer, which is going to be the socials. So here, let's render a div that's going to have a class name equal to flex-col, and a gap of 5. Let's render once again a footer column. This one is going to have a title of socials dot title. We have to import socials from constants. And within it, we can create a UL that's going to have a class name equal to regular of 14, flex, gap of 4, and text-gray of 30. Finally, right here, we can say socials.links.map, where we have each individual link, and then we can render a link component right here within it with an href pointing to the home page and a key of link. And we can render an image for each one of these instead of the text. So let's give it a source of link, alt of logo, width of 24, and height of 24 as well. So if we save it, you can see all the socials icon appear right here on the bottom. And of course, you can add the actual links by modifying the href, going to here, and then actually modify where this link is pointing to. And finally, we want to add this line and then say all rights reserved. So you can go below the footer column and below 1, 2, 3 more divs and render one self-closing div with a class name of border bggray20. That's going to provide the line. And below that line, create a p tag that's going to say something like 2023 or 4, high link, all rights reserved. If we save it, there we go. Let's style it a bit by giving it a class name of regular 14, w full, text-center, and text-gray-30. There we go. That's more like it. This is a wonderful looking footer section. But not only that, I can now close the footer and the layout and expand the app to admire it in its full glory. I mean, just look at this. Starting from the bottom to the top, we have a wonderful looking footer that looks great on desktop devices. Notice how it expands exactly to the width of this container right here. And same thing above. Notice how this is starting exactly where the phone is starting as well and ending exactly where the text is ending. How cool is that? That's how every single good looking app should look like, but unfortunately, not too many people pay attention to those details. So as we flow above, we can see our call to action section to download the app. We can see all of the features that our app has. We have this great looking kayak photo guiding your easy path. We can see if you're feeling lost to find a way to different camps. And then we have immediately a call to action and how we work section right here on the hero and then a navigation bar. How great is this? It is a complete landing page with a beautiful design. We're going to check the responsiveness once we deploy it. And I want to keep the performance and loading speeds of this app a secret until we actually deploy it. So that brings us to the last part of this phenomenal build, which is the deployment process. So let's go ahead and deploy this website together so you can put it on your portfolio, share it with your friends and potential employers, and get a job. And we're back on our Hostinger's dashboard. If you already claimed your domain and set up your hosting, you should have a manage button like this one. And if you haven't yet connected the domain, the setup will be right here. And when you do it, you'll be able to click the manage button. Then you can go to the file manager, which is going to lead you to your H panel. You can go into the public_HTML folder and delete the default.php. This is where our website will go. So back in our application, let's go to View and then Terminal. We can stop our application from running by pressing Ctrl+C and then Y, clear the terminal, and before we add anything within it, we have to go to our next.config.js, get into the next.config object, and say output is going to be set to a string of export. This is going to export all of our static pages. And I noticed there's one more thing we need, which is images inside of an object unoptimized is true. Although it might seem like a bad thing to add, this is going to speed up our website. You'll see the performance really soon. This is needed for everything to work well on our deployed version. So with that said, run npm run build. This is going to run the optimized production build that we'll be able to use in production. This process usually takes about a minute, so let's leave it be, and I'll be right back. Once it is done, you'll notice a new folder called out. In here, we have all of our assets and the index.html page. So simply right-click it and click Reveal in File Explorer or Open in Finder. Then open it up, press Ctrl or Command A to select all the files, and simply drag and drop them into public_HTML. This process is going to be incredibly quick. Once you've done that, you can go back to your dashboard and click on the domain name. And would you look at that? Our website loaded instantly. Immediately, we're live on the domain name that you selected with a secure connection. Finally, I promised we're going to test the performance of our website. So right-click it, click Inspect, and then go to Lighthouse. Click Desktop and click Analyze Page Load. And trust me when I tell you, Google is quite strict when giving good ratings. So let's see what our website will get. And would you look at that? 99% for performance, 0.5 seconds until something shows on the screen, and 0.8 seconds until the full website is loaded. This is incredibly quick. And 0 seconds total blocking time, nothing is jumping across the screen, and the website is looking wonderful. Also, notice the SEO, best practices, and accessibility. And who's responsible for all of this? Well, we'll have to split it in 3 parts. First of all, you for developing such an amazing website. Second, Next.js for creating such a phenomenal way for us to develop these applications. And then third of all, Hostinger's fast servers. And since you watched this video until the end, that means that you're the perfect candidate for our ultimate Next.js 13 course. Here, we're going to go into so much more depth. Everything is going to be covered. The ways in which biggest companies build applications. All the skills you need to develop complex Next.js 13 apps. And the way of thinking too. How to get the fastest possible performances. And how to convert this performance into something that looks more like this. It's not going to be a typical YouTube video. The course is going to contain deep dive lectures, which contain phenomenal graphics for you to truly understand how everything works behind the scenes. Then we're going to build and deploy a much more complex application, and finally, you'll have active lessons to test your knowledge every step of the way. So go to jsmastery.pro and take your course now. I'll see you in there, and once again, phenomenal job on the app you've built in this video. Have a wonderful day.